Before I begin, I kindly ask all council members to silence and put away cell phones. If you need to conduct personal business during the meeting, please make a motion to recess. For those participating by phone, please keep your device muted unless speaking. When speaking, please remember to state your name for the benefit of those viewing the live stream. As a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast live. The camera is located above the clock at the back of the council chambers. Our proceedings follows Robert's Rules of Orders in accordance with Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090. To promote an orderly and respectful meeting, I respectfully ask the council to observe the following rules. Please seek recognition before speaking. No member may speak more than twice on the same motion without a vote to suspend the rules. No member may speak a second time until all who wish to speak have done so. These guidelines help ensure fairness, efficiency, and mutual respect in our discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle, I believe you're on the line.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Crofton.
Here.
Councilmember Vlock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. All members are with us in chambers except Councilmember Cottle, who is participating telephonically.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mark, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Before changes are discussed, are there conflicts of interest to declare?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Rubio?
if ordinance serial number 2517, agenda item 7.1.3 is adopted, I will have a conflict of interest to declare with respect to AM numbers 25 through 27 and 28. I respectfully wish to be excused from both discussion and actions on these AMs. The AMs propose awarding contracts to Big Dipper Construction, a company owned by my father, who is considered an immediate family member as defined in WMC 2.01.010.
Thank you, Councilmember Rubio. I rule in favor of your request to be excused from both discussions and action on AM numbers 25-27 and 28, provided ordinance serial number 25-17 is adopted. Are there changes to the agenda?
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Cottle?
Madam Mayor, in regard to resolution serial number 2520, I do not have a conflict of interest, but I do want to declare a relationship as I am the wife of the late Bert Cottle.
Thank you. I don't see a conflict at all, Ms. Cottle. Mr. Graham?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move item 8.3.1, resolution serial number 2519 to new business.
Okay. Are there further changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We are moving on to Proclamation recognizing Independence Day. Whereas Independence Day, celebrated annually on July 4th, commemorates the adoption of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, marking the birth of the United States of America as a free and sovereign nation. And whereas this day honors the courage, vision, and determination of our nation's founding fathers, who declared the inalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. And whereas each year on July 4th, we celebrate the birth of our nation and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, recognizing our great country as an enduring symbol of freedom, equality, and opportunity. Whereas Independence Day is a time to celebrate the ideals of freedom, democracy, and unity that continue to define and inspire our nation. And whereas the city of Wasilla recognizes the sacrifices made by those who have served and continue to serve to protect these freedoms we enjoy. And whereas on July 4th, 2025, we celebrate 249 years of independence. Now, therefore, I, Glenda D. Ledford, Mayor of the City of Wasilla, do hereby proclaim July 4th, 2025 as Independence Day in Wasilla and encourage all Alaskans to celebrate the birth of our nation and recognize the importance of our independence and freedom, dated this 23rd day of June 2025. Okay. We are on to commission and agencies reports. Planning Commissioner. We'll now hear from Acting City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have a Planning Commission meeting on the 10th of June where we updated the Planning Commission on the current comp plan progress. They discussed the role of a planning commissioner, and they also shared the Alaska Planning Commission handbook that's published by the Department of Commerce every year. We gave them a copy of that, as well as a copy of our original comp plan in 2011. We also gave them a copy of the SEDS, which we explained the relationship between the two, and then we went over the CIP budget that was passed the night before, so they had the most current update on what was passed. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, the lobbyist report from Confluent Strategies. Chris Noss.
Afternoon, everybody. Nice to see familiar faces, some new faces. So, back at it. It's nice to be home.
Chris, can you hit the button on the microphone for us? Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to follow your PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can follow my PowerPoint. It's fine. Just wanted to introduce myself, Chris Noss, managing partner of Confluent Strategies, who represents the city in government affairs, state and some federal work. We have a shop of about 4 folks, and the person who actually prepared this PowerPoint is Neil Steiniger, former OMB director. So if it's okay, Mayor, the PowerPoint was sent in prior to the budget veto, so I'll go through the PowerPoint and then we'll get into actually where we stand today, if that's okay. So kind of a fiscal budget recap here. You can see the budget was about 6.07. I don't know, do I need to turn something on? This?
Yeah. Sarah, you
Sorry.
Want to help him? Because I'm no good.
It's on my screen, so I apologize if it's not. It might be kind of hard to read for some folks, but just to kind of walk through it, kind of where things stand in terms of FY26. We're looking at about a $6 billion budget, and we looked at about a $56 million surplus. And overall, we had about a $1,000 permanent fund. You can kind of read through there in terms of what that looks like. And we, are spending about $1.7 billion. The legislative passed budget was about $1.7 billion less than the Governor Dunleavy initially proposed. And if you remember, the governor, on about the 100th and 10th day of the legislative session, removed his budget amendments, given the fact that the price of oil is down. So we included those budget amendments as the entire $1.7 billion. Prior to vetoes, the legislature, as folks saw in the media, passed a $700 increment to the base student allocation. Last year was $680. The 700 BSA was passed in the budget. The governor vetoed House Bill 57, which was the reform and the statutory formula of the BSA for K-12. That was overridden by the legislature with 46 votes. Those 46 votes in the joint session, only 40 are needed for a piece of legislation, 45 are needed for a budgetary veto. And what we saw is the governor reduced that BSA in his line item veto authority from $700 to $500 BSA. And which means this is the first time in state history a governor has actually underfunded a statutory formula for the base student allocation for K-12 education. So looking at that, the $700 to $500 million is only, I don't want to say only, it's about $50 million to the program, but the legislature will have the opportunity most likely in January to come back and try to override that with 45 votes and a number of other issues. In terms of capital budget, it was more or less absent this year. We looked at primarily federal matches for transportation in energy. We looked at a number of behavioral health, Medicaid, some of those other areas. And then you can see here from the FY25 deficit, there's still a shortfall of oil prices decline, but it looks like we're in much better shape this week than we were previously. This budget now is based on a $68 barrel of oil, and I think we're anywhere from 75 to 76 here in the last 24 hours, so a lot better. Some of the things that, we talk about weaponization of certain funds. So the Senate this year put forth the FY25 supplemental. They put in language which required a constitutional budget reserve access of approximately $200 million. To access the CBR in Juneau, it requires a 3/4 vote of each body of the legislature. So 30 in the House, 15 in the Senate. That failed. And so the fallback was, with the failure of that, was that, and this is the weaponization, they took the first $100 million to come out of the ADA dividend, and then the second $100 million to come out of what they call the Higher Education Fund. The governor line item vetoed the ADA component because the CBR failed. So now we have a $200 million draw from the Higher Education Fund to fund our FY25 budget, supplemental budget. So that's, that's going to be an issue probably when we come in January and how to deal with that. This is kind of interesting just from a revenue picture on the next slide. And this is unrestricted general fund revenue. And so for folks that can read small, you can see the petroleum piece versus the non-petroleum. And then the percent of market value is the green, which is the 5%. And then just kind of where our expenditures have gone. And if you can tell, in FY26, and I think when I started in Juneau, the oil revenues were about 83% of the budget. And this, they're about 26 to 28%. So it really shows you how things have changed and how really dependent the legislature has become on the interest and the percent of market value, that 5% of the earnings of the permanent fund. That's really how we budget. And here's another piece just so folks can see in terms of inflation adjusted state revenues. Don't really have much to show on that. It's pretty similar to the other. But I think the next slide is really interesting. So this is where we look at the Alaskans permanent fund dividend, okay? And so you hear a lot of the campaign rhetoric around a full statutory PFD, a $3,000 PFD, and you can see if we funded a full PFD, it would be $2.5 billion, and that top square, if you will, would take up, a full PFD would take up that much of the existing budgetary process. We have been budgeting on a 75-25 percentage of distribution, 75% for state government, 25% for dividend. And so that's what we have been normally working through. And this, you can tell that 25% is about that $1,000 PFD this year, which equates to about $685 million. And then just kind of look at a little bit of the inflationary component on the K-12 education. And just what, in terms of, we've actually reduced funding over the last couple of years in terms of education formula. The green is money that was put into a K-12 formula outside the formula. So that was like last year when we did, last 2 years, we did one-time funding of $680 outside the base student allocation. The bill and the law that the legislature passed with the veto override now puts that money into the formula. And that's just kind of the last, so you can kind of see what it looks like in terms of the overall spend. And so, and I wanted to put in there the Matsu, just because the Matsu is looking at an average daily measurement there. And you can see we peaked about, in terms of the funding piece, we've peaked about 21, and we've been kind of doing a little bit of slow progression in the wrong direction. So what I'll tell you about that is just in terms of enrollment in the Matsu, we're looking at, the funding's about 13.9% lower than it was in 2021. And it looks like our high average hit in terms of ADM is 19,372 students. So that's something that, I think from the Matsu Valley, I think that's something that we all need to keep an eye on in terms of where that funding goes in the next 2 to 3 years. I think it's really important. And so that is more or less the pre-veto discussion. And so what I was just there's two pieces I'd like to hit on, Madam Mayor, if that's okay, is one, we talked a little bit about the education in terms of the deficit and how, that $1 on an annual basis in terms of a price of a barrel of oil is about anywhere from $50 to $75 million on an annual basis. So, now the fact that we're $8 or so over our projections, it's going to provide some cushion and potentially a capital budget. The other piece, I think that has direct impact, particularly the city, is the DOT vetoes in terms of the STIP. And I'll just read a little bit of, what the governor took out. Looks like the governor vetoed about $66.6 million from DOT capital budget, primarily out of match and federal funds and the STIP. So $52.3 million came out of the STIP program. And basically what the feedback is that puts in potential jeopardy approximately $607 million in federal revenues to the state in terms of matches. $9.8 million of match vetoed was from the Aviation Improvement Program, which is the AIP program, which jeopardizes approximately $111 million total dollars in federal revenue. Another one that's important in the federal side and for the industry is $2.5 million was vetoed from Dalton Highway Maintenance, and then we saw a washout here just last week, right? And then we had another $2 million other match vetoed in Highway Safety, Transit Administration, and other federal match programs. So total, in terms of general fund state dollars, we had a reduction in operating costs from the central region, which is the Matsu Anchorage, about $2.5 million, which is probably not a big deal, but given the growth, particularly in this area, it was something we have to watch and see where those cuts are actually going to come from an operational standpoint. So that's more or less a quick synopsis of where things are at. What I would tell you is on the federal side and the big beautiful bill, there's really what I consider three factors that are pretty significant to Alaska as a whole. We have about 40% of our population on Medicaid, and there could be some significant reductions in Medicaid. I think that time will tell. The other piece that has been a big issue for large industry is what they call the SALT provisions, which is the ability to use as deductions state and local taxes. That's a very big deal for the oil industry in terms of how they invest. And then, three, which isn't as big, but it's been a lot of money, is the renewable energy components and the deductions for that. And so those are things that we are watching. I think that they will probably work through and get some type of bill. I don't know really what that will look like here once the Senate does get through with that. So, I think the goal is by August recess at this point. So happy to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions? Mr. Graham?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. A lot of good information there. And obviously, this session, we're halfway through the session. We went to the first half of the session. There's a bunch of stuff kind of loaded up in the salt shaker waiting to be poured onto the entree here as soon as the next half of the session starts. Can you kind of fill us in on what appears to be happening and what you think will be happening once the second half of the session starts?
Yeah, I think, we're entering the 7th year we're in the 7th year, and we're gonna enter the last year of the governor's term. And so I do think that there's a growing appetite to have a significant investment in terms of deferred maintenance and capital. And I would not, you are starting to hear a larger discussion in and around a general obligation bond package, which would have to be done next legislative session and voted on in November in 26. So I do think, obviously the price of oil stays high, then we'll have some money to use general fund dollars and provide those federal matches. I think, Councilman Graham, I think that the larger thing from my seat and what I look at is, I also look at the IJA dollars. We're entering year 4. Those IJA dollars are potentially up for reappropriation. And so those communities, those entities that don't have those funds encumbered, I think are vulnerable. And so, what I would tell, my clients is, one, make sure your dollars are encumbered so they can't go elsewhere. And then I would say, let's look for other opportunities of monies that have been sitting there and potentially utilizing those reapproaches at the federal level. Because once those floodgates open, I think there's going to be some interest to have a large spend. And if you look at some of the federal programs like the Golden Dome and some of these major investments where you might have indirect benefit from the city side of things, those could be real opportunities to make significant headway in some of your priorities. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
We are now at the introduction of conceptual plan for Nunley Park improvements, Corvus Design.
Madam Mayor, can I introduce Marie Hulse?
Absolutely.
Professional landscape architect with Corvus Design. She's going to be talking about the conceptual plan that we put together for the council's review tonight. And it kind of goes in line with the IM that's in your packet where we outlined how we got to this conceptual plan and kind of what I've been proposing for a timeline. Be happy to speak more about that at the end if the council has any questions. But Sarah's going to help Marie get her presentation up, and then she's going to walk us through kind of this initial look at what Nunley Park could be redeveloped to.
Good evening. My name is Marie Hulse. I'm with Corvus Design. I'm a landscape architect in the state of Alaska. And we were asked to help city staff come up with some ideas for Nunley Park. It's a great location. It's got a lot of potential, but there's some challenges that with some effort, we think this park could be just a jewel of the community. So we began the process by walking the site with city staff. We wanted to know what the concerns were from the city, and actually look at what was going on in the site so we could get a really educated understanding of the property and what the potentials were and what some potential issues that we can fix. So we listened to the city, we listened to their feedback, and actually while we were walking up the site, we received some feedback from some users, which was wonderful. So the plan in front of you is the plan that we developed as an initial concept. Now this is just some ideas that were thrown out there to get the conversation started. Because of the amount of potential for this site, really, we wanted to kind of help people think about how this could look and how they can use the site and what could happen. It's intended to change. It's intended to be a conversation piece, and we want that because the goal of a successful park is to have the community and the city tell you what you want, because they're the users. And if the users have features in a park, they'll come to it, which makes a successful park. So, like I said, this is some of the features that we discussed, and we wanted to bring this in front of the city and in front of the public to start the conversation, receive their feedback. We want them to tell us what they like, what they don't like, and then we can go from there. So just a few kind of broad ideas that led to this park. There's two main features that really lead to a successful park. It needs to be practical, it needs to be maintainable, you need to have good circulation, you need to have good drainage, parking, and it needs to be fun. It needs to have features that actually bring people to the park. You know, a lot of people use the tot lot, but some of the green space isn't used quite as much as some of the other parks. So we thought maybe there's some potential to bring some smaller features to draw more people into the area, and they can be just as popular as some of the other parks in the city. Lighting is important, you know, making sure that the bathroom is accessible. Developing the parking lot makes it easier to maintain, plow, and just kind of trying to make it function a little bit better. Right now it's not ADA accessible, so you know, a great feature for a park is making it accessible for all. And there is a lot of topography on the site, so some of these features, the ideas came with the idea that you can use that topography in the feature, and it enhances the site, and it just develops a few opportunities. The central feature you can see in this image is an amphitheater. Those are great for slopes. You build the seating into the slope, you put a deck of some sort at the bottom. It can be used for concerts, it can be used for plays. Somebody could even rent it and have a little party there. So it's got a lot of opportunities. But you know, that's always gonna be up to what the city wants and what the community wants. If they wanna see something like that, if they think that's a valuable feature, wonderful, it fits perfectly. If something else would be better, that's a great idea too. So we also wanted to bring some fun features to the site. A lot of people use the tot lot, but the equipment is a little old, and older equipment can be hard to maintain. So then you have safety issues with kids getting hurt, and just it's more expensive for the city to maintain older equipment. So there's lots of programs out there, grant programs to acquire some of this newer equipment. And with the challenges that were brought up from the existing caboose, one idea is to make a train theme tot lot. It kind of plays off of the train that's there, the caboose, which we've heard is very special and has a lot of sentimental value to the community. But at this point, it seems as if having it removed from the site and possibly restored might be a better option and a safer option. So you can still keep the caboose, but it's just relocated off-site. But we still give a nod to that. The memorial trees are wonderful features, but we notice that the plaques are disappearing in the grass, and it's a little bit hard to maintain. So one idea is to put a simple curb around it, maybe some raised memorial plaques and plantings. It makes it easier to maintain. You can mow around it easier. The plaques are visible and the trees are preserved. The garden, we understood it needs a little bit of an upgrade. So one idea is to put it closer to a little bit better parking, make sure there's good access off the road so they can bring dirt and materials and supplies into the park, make it accessible, and make it really an inviting feature, make it larger. We added a shade structure in the middle of the garden just to create a little nice space for people to sit in and an orchard. We also added another parking area right across from the city main entrance. It's a great spot for a little bit of overflow. It has great access to the middle of the park, whether you have an amphitheater or maybe another prime feature in that center space. But you know, it spreads out the parking, which is great for traffic. You know, you don't want everybody coming in and out of the same spot because then you get bottlenecks. So the idea was to make sure that there was good circulation throughout the park, and we wanted to make sure that there's lots of accessible routes. So there is an accessible route to all the parking areas and all the main features. We also noticed that you have a nice new gazebo. So we didn't want to get rid of that, it's in good shape. And one idea is to possibly relocate it closer to the playground so that it can be a little bit more usable, people using the playground area. But that's just one idea. Lots of open picnic tables, and just kind of some general definition for the park, just to make it feel like a place. But as I said, this is kind of a jumping off point. We just wanted to get an idea out there to get feedback. So, another great opportunity for having a conceptual master plan type project like this is it allows for good phasing. So phasing is going to be really important when it comes to deciding how you can actually put these improvements in place and doing it practically. So you're not digging up improvements that are new so that you can install, say, utilities or fix grading issues. This is going to be kind of the guideline that is going to be used when it moves on to the actual improvement drawings for this product. And it's going to help you be practical. It's going to help you develop a project that is going to be most efficient for your funding. And if you all of a sudden come up with a grant opportunity for the playground equipment, you know where it goes, you know the space, you know what you need. It's easy to install. It's already planned, and it just makes it for a little bit easier transition for the project. So that is my presentation, and like I said, I welcome any questions or thoughts, ideas.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thanks for taking the time to come and sit with us. You mentioned initially that Nunley Park could be the jewel of the city. Well, my philosophy on parks is every park generally serves a different demographic. There is a lot of crossover between the parks, but Iditarod Park is the jewel of the city. That is where we have spent tens of millions of dollars to attract as many of the different demographics as we can. We have as much open space there as we can to accommodate things like the Wednesday market, the fireworks show, all that sort of stuff. So while I appreciate your thinking this is going to be a jewel, not the jewel, would kind of be my thing. But so a couple things looking at this. When we look at the tot area over here, currently there's a porta potty serving that tot area, which is used extensively. Okay, I don't see a restroom anywhere near that tot area. That's concerning to me. And the thought of an amphitheater, while it does seem to be a good use of space to transition from one level to another, we have an amphitheater at the library, which is rarely used. There's no attraction there. We have several gazebos at Iditarod Park, which are significantly underused. So I would think trying to find a better use for that central space there would be time well spent. And then I'm also kind of concerned. Well, number one, I'm happy to see that we're working on the community gardens there. That's been something I've been trying to get the city to do for years. So I'm happy to see that moving there. But it seems that we have done that at the expense of the open turf area out there. One of the ideals of the city, one of the places we would like to be, is to bring more walking traffic downtown. And to do that, you have to have some sort of assembly area to do that. And Nunley Park has served as that assembly area for many things. I mean, just was it last week when all the motorcyclists got together over there? Of course, they weren't using the park, but they were using the parking lot. But I mean, it's recognized as a place where you can assemble. And when we take that what's labeled as new open turf area, and we make it half the size of the existing turf area, I'm concerned about that. And given the fact that we're trying to make the downtown more walkable, there was some discussion earlier. I had a discussion with Jess Griffiths several months ago about widening the sidewalks along the edge of the park there, because right now they're pretty narrow. If you have a mother with a stroller, whoever's going the other way is going to step off into the curb, off the curb into the street, you know, to accommodate that movement there going two ways. So just kind of food for thought. It does look nice, but like I say, when we're serving that demographic, we also have to think about this unused space where there's currently a building there, and then the unused space next to that, because pickleball is a totally different demographic than the family park that Nunley Park has been for many, many years. Thank you for your presentation.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to echo Mr. Graham's comments around the restroom there. I think walking the length of the park every time somebody needs to use the bathroom, especially when you have small children, like, again, this park is definitely geared towards smaller children, so basically you're going to have to round your entire party, walk all the length of the park and use the bathroom every time. So I think finding a way to at least add another one so you're not having to go as far would be highly, highly beneficial. The amphitheater too, I had the same thought as well. I was curious what other ideas that might have come up when it came to that space there versus an amphitheater.
We did talk about a sledding hill. Those seem to be pretty popular around here. Slopes are challenging, especially when you're trying to maximize the usability of it. A lot of times they just tend to be a vegetated space. But we're open to any ideas that people might have. You know, I've seen climbing walls being incorporated into slopes. I've seen playgrounds incorporated into slopes, which kind of gives a little bit of a different opportunity. Typically, they're geared towards older kids, but there's some very interesting parks out there that are built into the slopes. So, like I said, it just kind of depends on what the community wants to see. Do they want to see this more as a play area for kids? Do they want to see it more as an activity area for older adults? Do they want, you know, we did show some pickleball courts in this. Do they want more courts? You can put in a retaining wall, add some courts along the slope, and that makes kind of for a nice protected space there. So really it kind of depends on what the vision is from the community, but there is a lot of opportunities for slopes.
Okay, thank you. And then the caboose. Now, I know the council originally said that they wanted the caboose to stay because that was something that was put in our budget. I know you mentioned we would still retain it, take it somewhere else. Has there been an idea to incorporate it somewhere in here? I mean, obviously it seems like we're trying to keep the top area as train themed as well. Has there been a thought on what it would take to incorporate it into the park in some fashion? Because part of the concern with it right now, and I've heard a lot of comments around it, is part of just the way it's positioned, because it blocks half the view of the park, the way it's currently sitting. So it almost needs just a 90-degree turn incorporated into a different area to make it a little bit more functional, a little bit more.
It's possible. I think the main concern was the potential for lead paint and asbestos. So it would require quite a bit of effort to get it to the point where it's safe for people to be to actually interact with. And then it does, I've heard it tends to be a little bit of a concern for safety because kids are climbing on it. And you have the fall hazards, things like that. So that's just the concerns that I've heard. But if the community and the city decides they want to keep it there, then we'll try to figure out a way to make it safe. But those were the concerns that we heard.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, coming back to the caboose and your concerns about lead paint and asbestos, those are easily covered. There's a 70-year-old train in Palmer that's there every day. Kids climb on it every day. The lead paint is just covered with other paint. It is contained. The abatement is complete. Same with the asbestos on the brakes. Same thing. So, being led down the path that there is no easy and relatively inexpensive way.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, she is an architect. She is not dealing with the asbestos. She's a landscaper.
She brought this up, therefore it's on the table. And all I'm saying is that there are ways to abate those hazards. So, let's make sure that while you're doing your duties as a, park consultant here, that you look at all those options as we go through. And then the second thing would have to do, and this is probably more for the city than for you, the city would have to decide to do it. But this is a great graphic. I mean, whoever came up with this and decided to come up with this is a great thing. We should blow this thing up, and it should be on each end of the park and be laminated or whatever, so it's got this QR code on it. So when mothers and children and city council people and cops are at the park, they can scan this and they can make comments. Because we want to be, we want to aggressively pursue what the public wants, as opposed to, 6 or 8 of us deciding what the public wants and moving forward from there. But thank you.
Through the mayor, yeah, so Councilman Graham, that is the plan. So with the council's agreement in what I outlined in the IM, there will be half a dozen laminated versions of these out on the park in the next few days. And we'll be asking for the public users' engagement in that. That's what the QR code is for. And it'll say something to the effect of, we need your feedback on this, come look at it, and use this QR code and tell us. And I'm proposing that we use the month of July to collect those the user feedback and capitalize on everyone being down here 4th of July. And then I'm looking, once that closes, I'm looking for direction from the council on if it goes to the Parks and Rec Committee first with all those comments, or when it comes back to council. We can talk about that at a future meeting, but my plan is to have it in front of the public on site through social media for the month of July.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you. This would be to Eric, since he brought up the question or the comment around posting this. Did you say just at this park, or are we planning on posting at some of the other parks as well?
I think it should be at Idita Park too, and capitalize on the music at the park on Saturdays. So if we can go to any park, it's just more lamination. So if the council wants it at every park, that's easy to do. So
I mean, I would think something at some of the other, especially I did a park Wonderland area, because again, we want to get it in front of as many people as possible. And then if I recall, the discussion as well was to do something and have a little bit more of a noticeable spot at the mayor's picnic this year as well, was to have a table, have somebody there talking about it. And then, I don't know, just a comment as well, make sure to say this is not a final draft. This is just the initial something, so people are aware, because sometimes people see stuff like this and they go, oh, this is what it's going to be, and it's like, no, this is just the initial thought. Please tell us your feedback. That's what we're looking for here, is what you think about these ideas. So more to Eric there, but just some thoughts. So thank you.
Is there any further questions? Hearing none. Thank you, ma'am. We are now at public hearing. There are 5 ordinances scheduled for public hearing. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance serial number 2515 by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's amending Wasilla Municipal Code, Chapter 2.16, entitled Mayor, to amend Section 216030, qualification of mayor, to require the mayor to be a resident of Wasilla for 2 years instead of 1 year.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2515 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify on the ordinance, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2515?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton,
I move ordinance serial number 2515.
is there a second?
Graham, seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt ordinance serial number 2515. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. This one here was brought about more of just a realization of what high regard we hold our mayor for. We pay our mayor very well. Our mayor has a lot of duties. We are not a manager form of government. We are a strong mayoral form of government is what we consider it. And what I have concerns about is people coming into the city and changing their address for a short amount of time and being able to be our mayor. It does not take a lot of votes to be the mayor, and we have already seen concerns where people are able to flip-flop their address at will. And so what I wanted to see was have our mayor specifically have a longer residency term prior to having that ability to run for mayor. I think it's justifiable. You'll see a lot of forms of government where the head of that body or the head of that government requires a longer residency time than the body does, than the council in this case here. So I believe that extending it to a 2-year really ensures that the people that are in that position are people that want to be here and are wanting to better our city here. So I'd hope that you'd vote for this one. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Crafton. So here in Wasilla, we have a long and kind of proud history of mayors being long-term residents of our city. You know, I mean, Glenda, you've been a resident for 30-plus years, probably.
Almost 40.
You know, you look back at Bert Cottle. He has a long history in government, a long ties to the area. You know, you look before him at Fern Rupride, you look, you know, all the way back, go back to the mayors, and we've had people that have lived here and have experienced Wasilla and know the flavor of Wasilla, so to speak, and the attitude of the citizens, the attitude of the businesses, the attitude of the government, and are able to move that forward. You know, with the current regulation where it allows a person to run for mayor after only being here for a year, I'm not saying it spits in the face of that history and that tradition, but it certainly allows for someone with an agenda, which is untested and unproven here in the city, to move forward with that. Mr. Crafton mentioned it doesn't take a whole lot of votes to become the mayor, you know, about 600-800 votes, and you can be the mayor. So somebody comes in from, you know, and I hate to throw California under the bus, but everybody always does, so I'll jump on that bandwagon. You know, somebody comes in from California and wants to do some of the stuff that's going on in California. They want it to happen in Wasilla, so they come up here, they're a resident for a year, they throw some money at the mayoral campaign, and then all of a sudden, you've got this, you know, 3-year battle with a new administrator, you know, a new leader. So this doesn't preclude that, you know, that type of relationship from happening, but it does assure that whoever comes into the city and wants to run for mayor has had some time to absorb the culture and absorb, you know, the wants of the citizens and the feel of the city before they become the CEO, essentially, of the city. So I'm in favor of this.
Is there further discussion? Mark?
So would that be like 2 consecutive years right before running, or could you live here 10, 15 years, move outside the town, and could you follow up on that?
Madam Mayor, if I could. So the conversation I've had with our clerk about this basically is what shows on the voter record is a lot of times what they're gonna look for is, so when you go to run for mayor, you have to show that the most recent 2 years, in this case, if this were to pass, it'd be 2 years. Currently, it's 1 year right now. So to give an example is actually whenever the seat that Ms. Rubeo was appointed to, when she was appointed to a few years back, at the time, I had to prove that I had been a resident for over at least a year at that time. And so basically, depending on when you move into the city, you have to go back 2 years. So you could live here for 40 years, like some of our people have, move out and change your residency, and then you have to wait once you move back. It is an unfortunate thing, but again, it prevents the flip-flopping of moving in and out of the city.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Holly, do you need to weigh in on Mark's last comment? Are we good?
I think we're good. I guess we could add the word to consecutive years immediately prior, but I do think based on the language that we see in residencies, we don't need to. So I think if council members feel like that creates some confusion, we can add that word for an amendment, and that has no, I don't think it hurts the clarity of the language at all, and I think we help.
Yes. Agreed with Attorney Wells. It's clear to me that it's 2 years, just like the 1 year residency. I don't go 6 months and then 6 months back, but certainly I don't think clarity hurts.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, I agreed with what Mr. Graham said, is that most of the people here our mayors, tend to be long-term residents here. Again, if we could make it longer, I could, but there's actually a Title 20, is it 29? Title 29, yeah, Title 29 has a limit on what is even allowed, so you can't go beyond 3 years technically, is what Title 29 currently states.
It's a case precedent.
Yes.
Right. That Title 29 actually, we have a case that yes, flies in the, contradicts the statute, which is very unusual. The statute says that you can do 3 years, but a case that came out after the adoption of the statute says that it's unconstitutional to do 3 years. So we know it is constitutional and lawful to do 1 year. We know that it would be unconstitutional, unlawful to do 3. And so based on the comments and the findings the council members are going through tonight, and explaining why council members support the longer residency, we believe when we look at case precedent and statute that this would be permissible. Is my mic on?
No.
Okay, so if that's, Councilmember Crafton, does that?
If you will look on page 19 of 413 in your packet, on number 2, it says immediately prior to the election.
So it's clear.
So it's very clear.
It's up to council, but I think it's clear.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there an objection to the motion?
Madam Mayor, do you want to take a roll call?
Let's take a roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Cottle.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Yes.
Councilmember Crafton.
Yes.
Councilmember Velock.
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
The motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2515 passes unanimously with council members Cottle, Graham, Schmidt, Crafton, Velock, and Rubio in support.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 25-16 by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amending Wasilla Municipal Code 228-020 appointment, Wasilla Municipal Code 232-020 appointment, and Wasilla Municipal Code 385-030 appointment at will employment to require appointments of the finance director and the police chief to be subject to confirmation by city council.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2516 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify on ordinance serial number 2516, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing none, I will close public hearing and bring it back to the dais. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2516?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton,
Thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance serial number 2516.
is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt ordinance serial number 2516. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, as we were just talking about, we don't have a manager form of government here in the city of Wasilla, but Title 29 gives us the council the ability to confirm appointments. Basically what this does is, currently this is limited to our finance director and our police chief, and it doesn't affect the current sitting ones. In our case, we did just have our finance director resign, so it would technically apply to whoever gets appointed to that position if this were to pass. But basically what my intention was behind this was, it's not that I wanted the council to overstep its bounds and start managing the city in the form that other, like Palmer or the borough has, but what I wanted is a bit more capability of the council to essentially oversee the positions that very much help the mayor run the city. All of those positions that basically are sitting at the tables over there essentially are an extension of the mayor. They have a lot of authority and oversight as to what happens here. And so beginning with these two positions, which are strictly stated in Title 29, the council has the ability to confirm them. Basically just gives us the ability to have one final look at those positions before they're actually put in place. Doesn't prevent us or allow us to fire them or have any say in that type of position. But basically before those positions are fulfilled, the council gets the ability to review it, just like we would if it was a planning commissioner or any of the other positions that we fill through appointment there. It's just more of a confirmation position. So I'd appreciate your support on this one as well. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you again, Mr. Crafton, for bringing this up. You know, you bring up an interesting point, and a valid point in every discussion that we have, is that we do have a strong mayor form of government, which means the mayor is not just the mayor, but is the manager as well, and as such has a lot of leeway in how to direct the city and chooses her directors appropriately to help get the city down that path. Now, in the case of the police department, very, very visible. Very, very visible to every citizen, to every council person, everything that happens there, and knowing exactly how a potential police chief might be thinking in the future, which is what chiefs are paid to do, is to think in the future, manage in the present. But knowing how that happens, I definitely agree with the city council being able to interview or review candidates for the chief of police. However, the finance director is a very technical position. And the finance director is going to probably be, the director that works most closely with the mayor to make sure that we are following the appropriate books of regulations associated with public finance, because the city doesn't have any money. That's all your money, guys. It's not our money. It's the city's money, and there's lots of rules on how that can be spent and how it can be done. And a finance director is one that can work with the mayor to make sure that the pathway is there to do that. And I don't think, I've been on the council 10 years. I can't, and I can have a coherent conversation with the finance director, but I'm on step 1, rung 1 of the ladder, and he or she is way up on step 12. So there's a totally different thing there. So I would disagree with having the finance director approved, but I do think the city council should approve the police chief. And after I hear from other council members, I may bring forth an amendment to delete lines 30 and 31. So.
Okay, is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go off what Mr. Graham was saying about the finance director, I can see where you're saying that, again, it's somebody that works very closely with the mayor, and so we might not fully understand why we need to appoint him. I think part of what my intention of doing both of them was it added an additional layer of check and balance, per se. So that if a finance director or police chief, either one, I don't want to point out one specifically, were to be brought on and somebody knew something about them, that could potentially prevent them from fulfilling the duties or being a good person in that position, it adds that layer of check and balance that the council actually has the ability to essentially have the conversation. Do I really think that we're really gonna ever say no to these appointments? It's probably never gonna happen. As he said, you've been here for a while and you've seen that we've had very, very good people in those positions. And so do I think we're really gonna say no? Probably not. I think the council does a very good job of at least having a conversation when needed. I think this at least just offers us the ability to have a conversation when needed. So I'll leave it at that. I did have some other questions, but I'll wait since we're having kind of two bits of a conversation here. So I'll wait. I had some questions about the amendments that were brought forward, or the potential for amendments that were brought forward when we get there.
Is there further discussion? Ms. Rubio.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I just want to tell you that I will vote against this. I don't see a history of having issues of our mayor picking the police chief or finance director. And like you just said in your statement, coming back to the dais, you don't think we'd vote against it. Why are we doing it?
Further discussion?
Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've been pondering it too, seeing what would the benefit be to the city, because we do need to be looking at the benefits. And I really don't see any, because we are a lay council. You know, I'm not a finance director, I'm not a public safety person. I don't know. I would not really know who would be good and who wouldn't be good. You know, I would just have to leave that up to, you know, the mayor, who would have to be doing that research and the interviewing and the, you know, background checks and all that. That would be something we wouldn't be doing ourselves, I don't think. And like I said, I pondered this a lot, and I thought, well, is it a big deal? No, probably not if we do it, but it does, like Council Member Rubeo said, it does just add a layer of bureaucracy to it, you know. So, like I said, I've been pondering. I'm leaning no. You know, if something compelling comes up from someone else, maybe I won't, but that's just kind of what I'm looking at.
Ms. Cottle, do you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I look at this a little bit differently with council's ability to confirm a mayor's choice for position. I think it gives the council and the administration the opportunity to be on the same page, to be working together in these positions. And I think in the long run, being able to confirm a mayor's choice just gives it gives us this whole contingency of being able that we work together and we agree together on these positions, and it shows our faith in the mayor also by doing that. So I'm going to vote yes on this.
Mr. Graham? Oh, sorry. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Rubio on this. I think by doing this, we're saying we don't really trust our mayor into picking the right person. And I think the checks and balance comes in when they propose their budgets for the year and prepare all the paperwork. We can clearly see what we're doing there, and then we can review what they're doing and give feedback at the end on that portion of it.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I value all the comments there, but I do agree with the councilperson Cottle that being able to confirm the appointments, it's not like we're interviewing these people to say yes or no. We're saying, well, the mayor has done his or her research, you know, and has interviewed whatever people and has chosen, you know, Ms. Rubio to be the chief of police. And if that's the case, then Ms. Rubio sits here and we ask her a couple questions about what her philosophy of community policing is, traffic enforcement, all that fun stuff. And we express our concerns or about what we're hearing from the public, and then we can confirm. And if the person selected, to be the police chief, is uncomfortable with that, that gives them the opportunity to speak up with that as well, as opposed to waiting until they come to a city council meeting and, we don't ambush people, but all of a sudden find out that what they were thinking isn't, what they were thinking the job is actually not the case. Because the city council does, like Mr. Schmidt said, we do go through the budgeting process, we do control the purse, we figure things out, and more importantly, we're the ones that, control the code. I mean, we wrote the code. There's nothing in there that the city council didn't approve of. So everybody that's sitting at that table knows at some point what the city council was thinking, and the city council certainly has the opportunity to change the code, which we'll be doing, tonight, or working on tonight with Chapter 16. So there's plenty of opportunities there. I do not see a drawback to doing this. However, Madam Mayor, I do offer amendment to delete lines 30 and 31 on page 1 of 2 of ordinance serial number 2516.
Through the chair to the body, is your intent to just delete section 2?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify something Councilmember Graham said.
Second.
Need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there a second to delete section 2?
Do we have a second to delete section 2?
And the effect of that, Madam Mayor, is at that point, the confirmation of the finance director is off the table and debate centers around the police chief only. Hearing no second,
Then it fails for lack of a second.
so the entire ordinance is now before the body.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Graham stated that the chief of police, the candidate, we would still question, but we don't do that for a planning person. Are you saying we would do that for the chief of police and the finance director? Ask them questions and where they're from, because we don't do that now for the planning commission. We wouldn't put them through that, would we? Or would we?
We certainly have the opportunity to do that with any commissioners that are proposed, but typically they're just run through the consent agenda. And there's not much discussion on it, but they can be, pulled into new business. In this case, the appointment of a chief of police and a finance director, if the mayor felt it was non-controversial, would run it through, the consent agenda, but typically would probably go through new business on that, since these are directors, and these are the persons running the city day to day. So yeah, you do that. When I say questioning them, I don't know that sounds kind of harsh, but it is true. We want to know what their philosophy is and where they go from there. With planning commissioners, we usually don't. Yeah, it's more like an interview than questioning. Just sounds kind of harsh, but it would give the council the opportunity to ask questions of the police chief and the finance director.
Holly?
Yeah, I do want to clarify. I think that this ordinance creates a confirmation process, not a questioning process or an interview process. And while you have a strong mayor, and Councilmember Graham, I think you said this best, it is a manager form. The mayor just, in essence, takes on those manager duties. And that means that even if you are adopting a confirmation approval process as proposed in this ordinance, council's role is not expanding beyond the confirmation process. When you look at communities that have a confirmation process, usually what you have is a resolution put before council confirming a name, and there is no obligation or expectation that an individual appear. I think a lot of communities go that direction because of the difference between asking someone to come in and serve a position with a, say, strong mayor, city manager form of government, versus asking them to do that and also prepare for a confirmation hearing, which you will find in some legislative positions. So to the extent that helps the discussion, I want to make sure I clarify.
Mr. Crafton?
Madam Mayor, question here to Holly. But it doesn't stop us from asking the mayor to have that as an option. That the council theoretically could say, we would like it, or could we have this person, just like we've done with some of our directors in the past, where we've had questions for them, and we can't, and you've stated before, we can't subpoena them. We can't say, hey, you must appear before the council. Basically, what we would do at that point is, if that confirmation came up, we might say, hey, Madam Mayor, we'd ask that, if they're not here at the time, if they would be willing to come before the council. Maybe the council has some questions for them prior to it, but from what I would understand, there's nothing that says we can't, so it doesn't mean that we couldn't.
I think that's a very interesting question, and the reason why is if we have a confirmation hearing for a employee subject to the employee provisions in our code and our policies, subject to the anti-discrimination provisions and the equal protection provisions that apply to us as a city government, it might get dangerous, right? Because we're not talking about an appointment for an unpaid or a position that is, for say, planning commission, or appointment on a quasi-judicial body that's serving a legislative and quasi-judicial. We're talking about a city employee, which will then be compared to the process and treatment of other city employees. And that is why I think most of the time confirmation on a municipal level is not done in a question and answer. And while the council and the mayor's office has traditionally and historically had this great relationship in Wasilla, where you do ask questions of the directors, directly, in many communities, the city manager or the mayor, and a strong mayor will just simply call on and controls that conversation a lot tighter. It's a much more rigid process. So I think it's great that we do that here, but I think to extend it to a confirmation, we don't put the directors, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, and this might have happened before, but we don't ask directors that are not currently employees but soon to be employees to come in and answer questions or interview questions by council for that reason, because it creates this, this risk really and vulnerability that we will, as a government actor, misstep. Because when we talk about asking people about their values, suddenly that has a very weighty meaning. Values very quickly become things we're not allowed to take into consideration for purposes of a director. But they may be something that's appropriate when you're looking to appoint another council member.
Sorry, I have to disagree with some of that, and I mean, I have the right to do that, but I mean that is the case, because I mean, do I really think the mayor's not asking their directors some of their values? Because why would the mayor hire somebody that just because they have the qualifications for that position? Why would she hire somebody that has complete opposite values, that isn't willing to work with the mayor, whether it be he or she, to fulfill what she wants in this case as mayor? I mean, that's what I would think. But to me, that's a kind of a whole nother conversation there at this point. But I had some questions about these amendments that you I believe this came from you, right, Holly?
Okay. Let Jamie weigh in first, please.
We can move on. I don't need to weigh in on that, but the amendments actually came from me.
Oh, sorry.
Because, we had an interim finance director, and so the question came up about the confirmation and if this passed, in the future, what would we do with interim? And so I asked the city attorney to draft the amendments, and the 6 months we just kind of came up with, that we thought that was maybe reasonable in a hiring process, but that's completely up to the council if the amendment is moved.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. My question would be, if we put this portion in place, it's two different sections, they mean the same thing, just referencing two different sections. If this was put in place, would it stop a mayor from just continuously saying, I'm gonna appoint you for 6 months, 6 months comes up, and then I'm gonna appoint you for 6 months, so it basically skirts the ability for the council to go through the confirmation process? Would that, or would we need to say, hey, we limit you to a certain amount of times that you can be appointed to that 6 month time frame, or whatever the time frame we choose to be?
It's an excellent question. It was something that I thought about, like, should we be saying a no more than 2 back-to-back? But I think because they will be serving as interim, fill in the blank, if they were to go for another 6 month, that would be more than 6 months. Because of the nature of the position, it is now if they served as an interim officer for one position and then they switch to another position, that would be permitted, which happens a lot sometimes when you might have somebody who serves as acting planner, but then also will step in some other role. We especially see that with deputy administrators. So I think the language is sufficient as written and keeps it clean, but I do understand your point. I think another way to just ensure that is not misinterpreted is simply to have council state the intent that is limited to 6 months. But if somebody asked me if it was limited to 6 months based on that language proposed, I would say it's limited to 6 months based on the plain meaning of the language.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Graham?
Madam Mayor, so come back to the word confirmation, and more importantly to how the confirmation happens. Our attorney talked about this, through a resolution or however that's going to happen, which would be published as an agenda item, okay, which would then be available to the public. And I don't want to go Eugene Haberman on anybody here, but the public process is how we work. If the public isn't aware of what we're doing, then they are not going to comment on what we're doing. And whether they comment by coming and filling a chair here, or by making my phone ring, or how we're, sitting down with the mayor and saying, I heard, that you want Stu Graham to be the finance director, and, I heard he was caught shoplifting in New Mexico. I don't know if we want that guy, but they don't want to say that in public. It gets that out there that says, hey, we're looking at Stu Graham to be the finance director, which is inviting comment from the public. And I think that's what we need to do, is to, much like we want to invite comment on the park, in the case of the park, I think we want to aggressively invite comment, but in the case of, of the finance director, the police chief, or whomever, we want to invite comment and make sure the public is aware of that, and whether they choose to do that privately or whether they choose to do that, during the public comment period here would be there. So I think the confirmation process is important because it does happen through the agenda and through a resolution which would be open for public comment.
Madam Mayor, I made up my mind. After this discussion, I think it does just convolute the thing. I think if we're going to be asking for, to be able to confirm a couple of positions, pretty soon we're feeling, I think we're overstepping. We're going to confirm maybe every director. And pretty soon, and that's not our job. We have an HR department, we have the mayor, we have people who do these background checks. You can tell all this. I think we are just, we're overstepping. We don't want the I can imagine the public weighing in on, who we're thinking to hire. The public, I just don't think that's their job. That's why we're here. That's why we hire executives. That's why we have administration. So after this discussion, I would vote no.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kraft?
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing I'd say is this type of thing is absolutely our job. Title 29 states what authority the council has, and at times what authority we can give ourselves. And this is something that is strictly, and this is what we went back and forth with a little bit. I've been working on this one, gosh, I want to say since February is whenever I first brought this to the clerk. And we went back and forth because we had to go look at Title 29. This is strictly one of our jobs. We have the right to do this. The council in the past has chosen not to act upon it, but we do have the authority to do this aspect of it. The other thing I wanted to go back to was what Mr. Schmidt had brought up earlier about when it came to checks and balances with the budget. And recently, I had a lot of concerns that just came forward. And that had to do with reviewing our P cards, as I've stated in the past already. That to me is a big concern, that this gives us the authority to start looking at ahead of time. Because now we have the time, we can take the time to actually do our own research and see, hey, is there anything about this person coming before us that would stop me from wanting them? Because I'm not gonna get into the full story right now, but to me, there was serious concerns with a position. And so to me, this is an absolute necessary aspect of our job that we should have the ability to have.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Thank you. This is on the adoption of ordinance serial number 2516. Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt.
No.
Councilmember Crofton.
Yes.
Councilmember Velock.
No.
Councilmember Rubio.
No.
Councilmember Cottle.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, the motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2516 fails, with council members Cottle, Graham, and Crafton in favor, Schmidt, Velock, and Rubio opposed. It fails. You don't choose to invoke your voting privilege, so ordinance fails.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 2517 by
Thank you.
title.
Thank you. It's amending Wasilla Municipal Code, Chapter 201, Code of Ethics, to amend Wasilla Municipal Code 201-010 definitions to define immediate family member and conflict of interest to include all members of immediate family, even those outside an official's household, and amending financial interest to include interests held by an official's immediate family.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2517 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify on ordinance serial number 2517, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2517?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2517.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Rubio and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt ordinance serial number 2517. Is there discussion?
Madam
Ms.
Mayor.
Rubio.
Thank you. I mean, it's summarized in the summary there. The objective of this ordinance is to avoid the appearance of impropriety and to preserve and protect the public's confidence in the officials making the decisions. And like I always say, I want that transparency. And so that is why I did put this in here.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I applaud Councilmember Rubio for bringing this forward. This is exactly what this does. It takes something that is a bit opaque at this point and makes it cleanly transparent. So I'm in favor of this, and I applaud Councilmember Rubio for a really good packet, because the staff summary just describes it exactly.
Further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just find it a little interesting that we even have to do this. You know, I think it's pretty clear, you know, in Ms. Rubio's case here, it's pretty directed at you in this case here, that you haven't had a conflict of interest in these situations here. And at the end of the day, I mean, perception is everything, and I think that's really what it comes down to here, is it's a perception-based thing. And so what we're doing is just making this, as transparent as we can possibly make it here. And again, at the end of the day, I find it a little frustrating that we have to even put it in place to create that transparency. But at the end of the day, perception is everything. So I'm a yes vote on this one as well, unfortunately, I have to say.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Velock.
I have to say, I already kind of thought we did that. So I was kind of surprised to see it, because we have not had any issues. you know, if we have to vote it in, we have to vote it in, but I didn't see an issue.
Further discussion? Yes.
Through the chair, to the body, just for the record, if I remember correctly, Holly, when the council first was presented with our code of ethics, the initial definition was intentional and it came directly out of the definition for APOC. And so that seemed very logical at the time, but we see how things change, and so, yeah.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is council ready to vote? Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 2518 by title.
Thank you. That's amending the fiscal year 2025 general fund by appropriating $19,600 from the general fund balance to clerks and council budgets to cover personnel expenses due to an increase in special meetings.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2518 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2518.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to adopt ordinance serial number 2518. Is there discussion?
Madam
Mr.
Mayor,
Graham.
this has been a rather unusual year for the council. We haven't had this many special meetings ever that I can recall. But we have attacked a lot of weighty issues this year. We've had to kind of amend the way that we go through budget. We've got more issues coming up. We've got Title 16, we've got a comprehensive plan, we've got all sorts of things happening. There's going to be more and more special meetings, which unfortunately means there's going to be more expense. So unfortunately, history, looking at the history and building the budget, this wasn't the case. But as we have gotten into this year, we have seen that the council's going to have more demands upon their time and more demands for meetings, and therefore this increase is needed.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Prior to the clerk here, did we compensate fiscal year 2026 with the idea that we might have a few extra special meetings? Now that I'm thinking back on it, I don't remember double checking it, because again, it's not the intention that we're going to, but as Mr. Graham just stated, we're not done with Title 16. Fiscal year starts the next week. It's hard to believe. And I know we still got some other things as well on the agenda in the coming year that are going to be pretty weighty as well.
Through the chair to the body, I'm not sure we did, but we'll come back for an adjustment if needed. We did increase it a bit, but Councilmember Graham is exactly right. I don't know how many meetings, the comp plan and everything else will include. So you may see one for this year, but I think once those, as he said, those weighty, kind of heavy, intense subjects are eventually adopted, you'll regulate back to more of a regular meeting schedule. You also have Title III that'll be coming through this year, I believe, Madam Mayor. So we'll see where we end up.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is council ready to vote? Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 2519 by title.
Thank you. That's amending the fiscal year 2025 general fund by appropriating $150,000 from the general fund balance to cover shortfalls in the FY25 budget regarding legal services for records management, human resources, planning, police administration, and public works administration departments.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2519 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
Is that public comment?
Please begin your testimony
2519.
by 2519.
I take that back, sorry.
Okay. And seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2519?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2519.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Vlock and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt ordinance serial number 2519. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, I'm gonna be, mayor's mouthpiece here and say, you know, if these meetings were shorter, we wouldn't have to pay the attorney nearly as much, so just a hint.
How about that?
Special meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Graham, for being my mouthpiece. Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. We are now persons to be heard. It's a time for members of the public to share their views with council. Please note that this is not a question and answer period. Speakers may be referred to administration and items raised may be taken under advisement. Additionally, over the last year, the City of Wasilla has routinely had members of the public attend and read excerpts from novels, some of which involve sexual content and are descriptions of incest or domestic violence that are not intended for children under the age of 14 and may be triggering to listeners and viewers. For those of you with young children viewing or listening to this meeting, or who may be triggered by the descriptions of incest or domestic violence, please be aware we are now entering public comment and you may want to mute the video or temporarily exit the meeting. We will notify the public when public comment has ended and council is moving on to the next item on the agenda. For those of you participating in public comment tonight, I respectfully ask you to remember that our attendees, viewers, and listeners may be under the age of 14 or victims of domestic violence and are not choosing to read the passages that you are choosing to read to them. Sarah? Mr. Stearns, you're up.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Tom Stearns, the Senior Ambassador for the Wasilla Area Seniors.
Tom, could you press the mic button? Sorry, it's off. There you go.
We'll just try again. Start again. Good evening. My name is Tom Stearns, Senior Ambassador for the Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated. Our phone number is 907-206-8800, and we're at www.wasilla.seniors.com. So, I haven't been here for a while, and a lot of exciting things have been happening over the last several months. Beginning with the Miles for Meals. We had our Miles for Meals auction, and that was successful, and the whole Miles for Meals fundraiser now is over. Our goal was $100,000. So far, we've raised about $65,000. And all of you missed the fun run on Saturday. I didn't see any of you out there. So next year, put it on your calendar. Miles for Meals, the fun run was on Saturday. We had a good group of people out there for that. We have coming up in July something called Christmas in July. We are trying to get someone to sponsor every lunch in July. So we so far have quite a number of them. We have 8 slots left. So there's about 8 of you here. You could all take one, and then we'd be all set. Thank you, though. So we have 8 slots left, and we would, if you'd like to help seniors and meals, congregate meals, we'd sure appreciate your help. Also in July, we have a craft fair coming on the 12th of July. So another craft fair, come and if you still have some money after you've spent it on our meal, you can come to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stearns. And I've already sponsored my meal, so just so you know.
I know, I saw your name.
Senator Wilson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council folks. My name is David Wilson. I'm a city resident, but today I am I'm talking on behalf of my employer, the Matzo Health Foundation. Last couple of weeks ago, we had our annual meeting when we missed you guys there. And I know that you guys had your meeting and it was conflict, but you guys were missed from that meeting. We'll try to make sure we try to schedule. It was at the Menard Center, so it was a wonderful event, and you guys had thank you, Scott, for making sure it was available and everything was nice, pleasant, and went off without a hitch there logistically. I just want to highlight a couple of items here from the Matzo Health Foundation. Since 2006, we have funded $125 million for over 436 organizations, mostly in the Matzo Valley, a couple statewide organizations, but funded almost over 65% of all NGOs in the Valley. That includes all 3 cities and the borough school district. And probably we are the largest funder of religious organizations in the state of Alaska as well, as you can see from some of the grantees that are also here in the 2024 award list as well. We just wanted to talk about how we are that place-based funder. We try to make sure we meet the needs of the community. We're currently, and every 3 years, we have to do a community needs assessment. We are currently underway with that. Hopefully that will be completed by year's end, as we are categorized as a nonprofit hospital by the IRS. We also just want to sort of talk upon probably either the Health Foundation or the hospital like to schedule or time to ask for some of support for a very large, I'm just going to tease because it's not quite official yet, behavioral health expansion project of greater than tens of millions of dollars investment here in the Matzo Borough, which is going to be a game changer for behavioral health services in the state, and let alone the Matzo Borough, to talk upon and talk about that expansion project, what that means for our residents here in the borough and the state of Alaska as a whole. So with that, I'll just leave you guys with that little teaser, and hopefully, because we've got 3 minutes and it's a long, big project, and I'm sure the hospital and the Health Foundation would like to have a little bit more of a time, and we'll see the best way to try to disseminate that information and try to have a answer question feedback session with the council and with the mayor and administration, and the community as a whole will be part of that conversation as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you guys again, and like I said, sorry about the conflict with the scheduling of that event at the last meeting, and wish you guys well. Thanks.
Thank you. Jackie, go forth. Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Greetings, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Jackie Goforth. I'm a writer, and it wasn't until February of 2023 that I realized the level of sexuality that was being published in books that were meant for children. And I immediately took steps to address it. And since that point, I have been vilified, demeaned, mocked, belittled, derided, chided, shamed. You know, the people who have alphabets after their names and are educated really do think that you should put a chainsaw or a hacksaw to children's genitalia, that you should tell children as soon as they're born that they're in the wrong body, and that you should sexualize them as young as possible. And they will also tell you that there's no such thing as pornography in the library. Now, pornography and obscenity are actually synonymous. They're the same thing. It's just a different media. Pornography means it's on film, and obscenity means it's in writing. And there's a law on the books of Alaska, it's 1161.128, that says it's a Class C felony to distribute obscenity to anyone under 16. Now, you will have people up here with alphabet after their name, and I've heard them, that will sit here and say there is no pornography in the libraries of any library in the valley, and that is untrue. It is an untrue statement. It is legally proven, and you have the proof in front of you. When the school district had a group of 11 members of our community, 11 members, 4 of them were school district employees. They went through 38 books. Now, the school district pulled out 56. And I actually agree with the judge's decision to put them back, because you're not supposed to judge a book guilty before anyone looks at it, right? Well, they went through 38 of them, and of those 38, they found 7 of them to be obscene based on the law. These 7 were found to be obscene unanimously. The book Verity was 11-0. That means 4 of those school district employees said that this book is illegal to give to anyone under 16 because it was obscene. Do you understand what that means? There was a settlement achieved at that school district, and all of the books were sent back except for 7. 7 of them were agreed that they were not to go back to schools because they were obscene based on Alaska law, based on the community standards where the book resides. That is a true story. It is a true statement. It's a legal fact that you have those books in your Wasilla library, and if they are checked out to anyone under 16, and if someone files a police case or something on that, it is illegal for those books to be, it is a Class C felony for those books to be distributed to anyone under 16, and it has already been found to be so by community members, 4 of whom were school district employees, and one of them will sit up here and tell you that there's no obscenity in the libraries when she voted that way. I watched her. That is what we're dealing with. And honor and integrity means so much to me that you will hear from me at the Palmer City Council tomorrow if you're listening. Thank you.
Eric Villasnor, I apologize if I butchered your name.
Sorry. My name is Eric Villasenor. I'm a city resident. I was looking at the agenda, and it looks like most of my talking points are actually coming up for one of the item numbers. So I just want to take this time to actually thank the representative from Wasilla Area Seniors. I'm a care coordinator for the Medicaid waiver program. A lot of my folks participate in adult day services, not just through Wasilla Area Seniors, but a couple of other outfits in town as well. And it's a vital part of our community. I think it's fantastic that our older population, especially the ones on the Medicaid waiver who are generally very poor and don't have a lot of access to resources that are not government funded. It's just so great that we have that here in our communities. And I know a couple of my people that would just go crazy, like extra crazy, if it weren't for these programs. So you'll hear from me again, but on a totally different matter. Thanks.
And we will close persons to be heard. We are at the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for approval under the consent agenda by title.
Thank you,
Madam
Madam.
Mayor, can we take a 5-minute recess before we get?
Okay, we will recess for 5 minutes. We will return at 7:48. We are back on the record at 7:50. Okay. We are now on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for approval under the consent agenda by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have the special meeting minutes, City Council, May 6, 2025. We have one resolution, resolution serial number 2520, renaming the Wasilla Police Department building located at 801 North Wasilla Fishhook Road as the Burt L. Cottle Wasilla Police Department building, and 1 a.m. Yep, just for the record, the first resolution, 2519, was moved to new business, so,
Sorry.
that's okay. We have the meeting minutes, no introductions. I just read in the one resolution. And lastly, AM number 2529, contract award to Confluent Strategies in the amount of $75,000 for municipal lobbyist services.
Okay, I've lost a council person.
We do have still have
I still have a quorum. So, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton,
I move the consent agenda as read.
is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Council Member Crafton and seconded by Council Member Rubio to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved.
Madam Mayor, I move to amend the agenda to move new business ahead of unfinished business due to the lengthy nature of the unfinished business.
Okay,
I'll second the motion if you need it. I was about to do the same thing. Thank you.
okay, is there objection to the motion to move the new business in front of unfinished business? Hearing none, we will go into new business. Madam Clerk,
Do you want to, this Councilmember Rubio is going to end up recusing herself for 27 and 28. Do you want to take the resolution first, 2519?
Yes.
Okay. So resolution serial number 2519, adopting the fiscal year 2026 salary structure and pay ranges for non-represented International Union of Operating Engineers Local 302, Alaska District Council of Laborers, Laborers Local 341, and Wasilla Police Department Employees Association, employees of the City of Wasilla.
okay. Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 2519?
Madam Mayor, I move resolution serial number 2519.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt resolution serial number 2519. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, I was asked to pull this by actually a couple people that called me on this that were concerned that they weren't able to weigh in on any potential bargaining negotiations, and I assured them, and I would like the attorney to weigh in on this. This has nothing to do with the negotiations. This is executing the existing contract, has nothing to do with negotiations underway with any of those unions. Am I correct in saying that, Ms. Wells?
Well, I think that I'm hesitant to say it has nothing to do, I mean, this is approving the agreements, but without having the labor negotiating attorney Jennifer Alexander weigh in, I don't want to overstep because I don't work on the collective bargaining agreement and labor negotiations front. I believe you are correct, Councilmember Graham, but I
That's the
think.
first time I've ever heard that from that table. Thank you.
Yes.
So, but I do think, unless, I think it might be more appropriate to turn to.
Madam Clerk.
Through the chair to the council, I think, and Madam Attorney, maybe you'll help, we can take it at ease and walk through this. I think if you look at the whereas clauses throughout the ordinance, I think the collective bargaining agreements are in place. and that these wage increases that were adopted through the budget process go in line with the collective bargaining agreements that are currently in place. The city is in negotiations with WPDA for a new, which will be the new contract. But please, anybody correct me if I'm incorrect.
Thank you. I think, again, like, other than on the face of the documents, I just don't have
Yeah.
background information. Perhaps that's, without pulling attorney.
Lieutenant-
Or the chief or somebody.
Lieutenant Rader, can you shed any light on this?
My understanding that the new contract is aside from this. This is references the prior contract, and the new contract that is currently being worked on will come toward the council later.
And that's what I told people to call, but they asked me to get an opinion on the record on that, so thank you.
The chair of the council, would you feel more comfortable postponing this?
I feel comfortable given the language of the resolution and also hearing representation from the public safety officer, as long as Councilmember Graham feels that.
I feel comfortable, thank you.
So we're all comfortable.
Okay. We're gonna vote on it? All right. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. And we are now, and Ms. Rubio, you are recused. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Thank you. AM number 2527, renewal contract award to Big Dipper Construction Incorporated in the amount of $235,000 for road maintenance equipment with operator services for fiscal year 2026.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt AM number 2527?
Madam Mayor, I move AM 2527.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second.
Is there objection to the motion?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion, sorry. I'm in a hurry. Is there discussion? Hearing none?
Madam Mayor, sorry, real quick. Just a point of clarification here, probably, might to be to our clerk. Were these normally gonna be put in the consent agenda, or were they just put under new business because of the ordinance we had before us?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Through the chair to Councilmember Crafton, it's because of the conflict Ms. Rubio has. So now that I'm aware, now that you've adopted the definition of immediate family, Big Dipper Construction is owned by her father. I will likely always schedule anything to do with Big Dipper under new business so that we can walk through her conflict of interest.
And that's what I was saying.
that
So
what you're
normally, had that ordinance not been on the agenda, this would have showed up on the consent
Correct.
agenda.
Yes,
Thank
sorry.
you. I have no
Okay.
objection, Madam Mayor, by the way. Just-
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Madam Clerk, AM number 2528.
Thank you. Renewal contract award to Big Dipper Construction Incorporated in the amount of $475,000 for utilities equipment with operator services for fiscal year 2026.
Is there a motion to adopt AM number 2528?
Madam Mayor, I move AM 2528.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
It has been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to adopt AM number 25-28. Is there discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. And now we go to unfinished business. Yes, please.
Thank you. Ordinance serial number 2514, repealing and reenacting Wasilla Municipal Code Title 16, Land Development Code to substantially change the uses permitted in each zoning district, the review, enforcement, and permitting procedures, the planned unit development, landscaping, parking, conditional use and variance procedures, and the design standards imposed by the city. This ordinance was postponed from the April 28th, 2025 regular city council meeting, May 21st special city council meeting, June 9th regular council meeting. The main motion to adopt the ordinance is pending, so it's on the floor.
Okay, we will take a brief at ease. There she comes. Ms. Rubio, we are at unfinished business with Title 16. Is there further discussion on Title 16?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Now, I know if I recall, the clerk had put out a memo to us basically just explaining kind of where we're at with this, you know, how much time we've put into this, how many special meetings have done, how much time our attorneys put into this one. I mean, I had asked a while back to set some time aside. I know we were going through the budget, and it got really confusing with us going back and forth between having meetings with this, having meetings on the budget. I know it was a lot for me trying to, you know, we spent a lot of time on the budget working on it, and on the budget, and then also trying to put time into reading, what was it, like 500 pages of this, trying to go through the red line, go through the new version, seeing all the differences here. I mean, I hate to keep waiting on this, but also at the same time, and obviously pouring more money into this, but to me, this is one of those things that sometimes a document like this takes its time to be able to fully flesh out. So I don't know if I'm fully ready for this one. I'd like to see it, honestly, I'd like to see a final special meeting where we amend it if we need to, and then pass it at that time instead of doing it at a meeting we've already been here for 2 hours for, and honestly would probably spend quite a bit more time at as well. I just don't know if we have the time to sit here and go through it constantly tonight. So that'd be my thoughts on this.
Let me put my 2 cents worth in. Since we are doing the comprehensive plan, and that comprehensive plan is out to the public and everything, and once it is adopted, then I think that whatever the public has weighed in on it, if it applies to Title 16, then we can amend. Holly?
Yes, so one I would say a special meeting is possible and appropriate, of course, but weighing in on that process. When this was started, it was sort of started as a 2-phase. Phase 1 was really getting the permitting issues down in Title 16, with the main focus being the elimination of 2 discretionary administrative permit processes. So it was to get it to a place where the administrative permits were based on, a very clean checklist of what is required under code and what is not, and then to have a conditional use permit process that had the discretion and bore the discretion. That was sort of the main goal. And then cleaning up short-term rentals, creating some deregulation there, and landscaping, which I think, so that's sort of the purpose of Title 16. It's morphed into a much bigger project. We've cleaned up so much more, and with council and the commission. Phase 2 was intended to come in and really redraw lines, and to the extent that's what came out of your comp plan. Look at the downtown overlay district, go all of those, directions that are a little more substantive, a little more meaty, and legislative. So I think if that answers your question, Mayor, I think what you were saying is, can we do some on the back end? And I think you've absolutely set the process up to include a phase 2 that would include that back end.
So Madam Mayor, if I could get some clarification on your intent here. Is your intent to agree with Mr. Crafton that we should have a special meeting, or not have, or move forward with this and then move forward with the comp plan. I was uncertain of your intent.
I was thinking that we would move forward with Title 16 tonight, and then when we are, because we've already started the public hearings on the comp plan, and when that is all done, then the public has had time to really weigh in on the comp plan, what they want the city to look like in 10, 15, 20 years. And then that will play in on Title 16. Do we leave it alone? Do we change? Then we will know where. To me, that's gonna give us some direction that we have not thought about.
Yeah, I'm all for getting public input, but I think based on what you're saying, I mean, we're getting direction based on what the code is now.
Oh, I agree with you.
So for us to change the code, it kind of invalidates some of the input that we're getting. So I would almost be in favor of, finding some way to postpone this until after the public comment session, or after the public comment period for the comprehensive plan is done, so that we can do that. I mean, I know Mr. Crafton, well, I don't know, but I assume Mr. Crafton has over a dozen amendments to this. I have one very significant amendment to this, and, as a minimum, I would be in favor of a special meeting, but based on what you and the attorney are saying, I'd say it would almost be worth waiting until we get the public comment and see how that affects what people think about Title 16.
It's just, Crystal, help me out here, but it's just that when they are trying to permit new permits coming in to build and everything, then we're still going by the old landscaping and all that stuff, to where we have already changed some stuff in 16 that we could implement now and make building and landscaping easier for the people that are coming in. That's my only concern.
Madam Mayor, I just keep in mind too, in here, even if we pass this today, there's a 30-day provision on this. So it'd be another 30 days before that basically we'd have to postpone every permit. So I really think, like Mr. Graham said, he's got a significant amendment. I've got quite a few, some of them minor, some of them pretty significant as well. I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is flesh out something really large, and this kind of got kicked to the wayside because the budget happened and we ended up diving very heavily into the budget. I think had we not spent as much time on the budget as we did this year, I think we would have spent more time on this, but I know there was some difficulty whenever we did take a meeting on this one. I mean, the whole council kind of struggled because it was such a mindset shift of talking budget to talking this, and it was just really hard to fully dive into this. I know I've spent more hours than I'd care to admit reading this thing, and I probably know it better than I want to care to admit as well, but I think it's worth at least one more good day of a stab at it before we finalize it.
Holly?
Mayor, one thing I would say is, if you're gonna do a special meeting, I do have a few amendments based on comments that council members brought up in the committee of the whole regarding definitions surrounding family that my colleague has worked on. We went back and looked at some of the constitutional provisions to make sure we had the best language possible in our opinion. And when we went back, we found it better we find best practice to be a slightly different approach. So that is something I'll be bringing to council if you have a special meeting. So I wanted to note that. I also wanted to the extent council needs a special meeting, that is of course appropriate. Removing phase 2, I would just warn council that is counter to the approach to Title 16 that you've talked to the commission about, that you've talked to the public about. So if we're going to do that, that is a change. So to the extent you want to build in the discussions on the front end during phase 1, complete the comp plan and go to phase 2, I would support that, just given the consistency of the approach that council and the commission during joint meetings came up with, which was this sort of phase one, then we go to the comp plan, then we do phase two. So I don't know how that comes into your decision-making, but I would throw it out there.
Absolutely.
Through the chair to the body, for what it's worth, at this stage of the game, depending on the amendments, which I have not seen, if there's still that amount of work to be done, because we saw my memo, I thought we were all kind of in agreement, not we, you. You had met with the joint meetings, at least 2 to 3 joint meetings, and this actual assigning the ordinance, the number, running it through the introduction process, public hearing, and then continued. I thought you were kind of the point was to be at a point of consensus. You may, which is fine, if you decide there's much more amendment to this, I would recommend postponing this indefinitely and starting over through committee of the whole and different meetings, because it's such a substantial title change that amending it here, Holly needs to go back and make sure it didn't change another section, and this is huge.
Madam
It's
Mayor.
ultimately up to council.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you. Sorry, first, two comments here. First to Holly, I wasn't thinking we'd remove phase two. The way I understood this was we had what's before us. Obviously, once we have it, it's the body's now, and the body can do with it as it wishes, which includes amending it, which I think from the very beginning that was going to be a plan. We knew somebody at some point in time was going to amend it. It gets passed, then the comp plan gets completed, and we were then going to take those comments in that direction and reapply it back to Title 16 and make some of those final adjustments and see if there was something that we implemented that, hey, we heard public comment that didn't work. Part of the reason why we're even mashing up here is because I think all of us can agree this ended up taking longer than we expected. I mean, look at what happened with the landscape code specifically. I mean, that took a year and then ultimately got scrapped. I mean, it basically was thrown out and we took Title 16 as a whole. So I wasn't thinking we were doing that. I just wanted a little bit more time to really refine my amendments. My intention was to put all of my amendments on paper and provide them to our clerk prior to a special meeting. I'm working on them again. It takes a little bit of time. And so that way, one, everybody had a written copy. You could review them as well. I know you had asked earlier that if we provided certain amendments, because it's been floated around, certain ideas that, hey, you to look at them to see if you could if it was going to affect it. So that was one of my intentions as well. But to our clerk there, the idea of scrapping this and starting over, no, I'm sorry. I would like to do one special meeting. I mean, if we pass it, we do. I think that's where the council's at. I don't know what the rest of the other appetite is, but that's what I would like to see at this point. And my intention would be to put as much of my amendments in writing as possible prior to that meeting for you.
Madam Mayor, may I ask the clerk, if we were to have a special meeting, what would be the earliest we could do that?
Thank you. Based on the amendments, I mean, I worry about notice, and you have a copy in here, and if I'm to make packet deadline and include those amendments in written form where they're fully vetted in a packet, at this point in time, I'd almost think the end of July. Because we're the first week of July is the 4th of July. I'm thinking, we could possibly have a meeting the second week, the 7th, the 8th and 9th are out because we already have commissions booked in chambers, possibly the 10th, but we get packets out 2 weeks ahead of time. So depending, it's just hard to know, and we're balancing Frontiersman, which only publishes twice a week now, and the amount of amendments coming forward, it's hard to say. So I'm almost thinking end of July.
If I could ask Mr. Crafton, how long do you think, sir, it would be before you could present written amendments or work with the clerk to have written amendments?
I've got other things.
I could send you an email by the end of the week is probably the best I could do. By Friday, I could write in an email. Sorry, go on.
Ms. Rubio?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. from everything that I've taken from administration and the attorney, us passing this tonight moves it forward and allows Ms. Nygaard to continue with businesses and working with them with all the permits. But at the same time, it allows us to amend it later, correct?
Yes, and we could even, again, we all talked about how this would be a living document and how part of this process is getting our narrative where we are saying to ourselves, we can change this, we anticipate changing it for 3 years, which I think is a point you're getting to. And so I even think it's appropriate if council passes it or passes it with certain non-substantial change-based amendments that we can incorporate without notice, and then during a special meeting introduces amendments. I don't think that's inappropriate with a project like this. I think it's important to coordinate with the administration so that if we're gonna shift or there's gonna be a change, we're communicating that to the public as it goes, and we're creating that narrative with the public that we're in this cycle where we are revisiting Title 16. So if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. So, like I said, I think approving it tonight is the right thing to do to keep the ball moving forward and allowing us to, as we say, the budget is live, this is live for a little bit of time, so we can adjust it and modify as we need to, from what I've gathered. Thank you.
Mayor Ledford, can I just add a few things? Crystal Nygaard here, acting planner. The reason that we have proposed this phased approach is that we are in the middle of construction season. There's a lot of permit applications coming in, and this takes us from 3 permits to 2. And one of the permits that we're getting a lot of applicants is use permits, where they can use, it's appropriate in a certain zone to have a use, but we have to send out public notifications, and then we have to quantify how we elevate that. And in our current code, it doesn't have a formula for that, so it's still very subjective. This rewrite, this first phase, allows us to have a mechanism to elevate up to the for a conditional use permit. So there are some fundamental changes in here that it also reduces the amount of time that we are spending on administrative permits right now. Because an administrative permit, so if Stearns wants to rent a place at the senior center to have a business, he's got to upload a site plan, he has to do an as-built survey. It's very onerous on him right now because of what our code says. This rewrite allows him to have basically, yes, I have a business license and I'm in a zone that's gonna allow this, and then he signs a disclaimer and we're off and running. So right now, at this time, we did 88 administrative approvals. We are up to 179, and it's taken us about 3 hours to process one. So it's a very expensive permit process. The other thing are short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are contentious all across the board, but we have different ways we can move with those, but we need to tell the public what we're gonna do, because we only have 3 approved short-term rentals. They did not come back to renew the second year. So technically, we don't have any licensed short-term rentals, and we know there's a pretty high number of them that are operating in the city. And the last is the landscape. We still have a lot of confusion in the market, especially new development or existing buildings. What constitutes, how do you guys get to this formula of 15%, or do I have to have islands or do I not? So it's at least gets us, like Councilmember Rubio said, it gets us closer to a solution, but it doesn't stall it entirely because the developers have put it off. In fact, we have 5 rezones coming forward because they can't wait anymore. They want to build multifamilies. Yes, it's aligned with our comp plan, but we have to have a way to get them over the finish line. And so from a practical everyday today process, this would really help us get forward.
Through the chair to the council, if you desired a special meeting, we could get you one the week, either Monday the 7th, Thursday the 10th, Friday the 11th would be the soonest.
Mayor,
Okay, yes.
And to the city clerk, I think one of the options we had discussed, because during a committee of the whole, I think Councilmember Crafton did share a lot of the amendments and talked through those with council. A lot of those, to me, not those aren't the changes you're talking about.
I just had questions at the time.
Okay.
Like, I was just trying to work through some questions because, I mean, I'm just looking at a section here where they're literally required to go measure every tree on their property, right? If we pass this, that's what's going to be in code, is that literally people for landscaping purposes are gonna have to go measure their trees. And they get counted different values for it. I mean, do we really need somebody to go measure every tree on their property, the thickness of it? I mean, to me, it's just not, that's a change that needs to be made here. And so that's what I'm saying. Again, we didn't even get through a fraction of the questions that I had. And at that point, I was like, you know what? We're not going to get through it because it didn't seem like the council had the appetite for it. So I was ready to just start amending it, but we had been talking for 3 hours. So we had waited, and then now we had ran into budget, and this is the first time we've talked about it since then. So, I mean, again, I think the best thing is to set this conversation started. I mean, it's taken us 20 minutes just to get to this point.
Well, that's helpful, because I just wasn't sure if those were, to the extent there are changes that are not substantial changes, or there's changes that you want to incorporate, you can also set the special meeting, have the ordinance along with written proposed amendments, so that you have them in the packet. That would allow, I mean, for example, the changes to single-family dwelling and those definitions could be included, and anything that seems appropriate from other council members could be included. It does seem, when council looks at its landscaping and its short-term rental policies or the downtown overlay districts, those are areas in which a lot of them, like where there is room to deregulate even greater than council originally proposed. But I will say those are very appropriate areas to revisit or treat with a amendment process that comes after the fact too. To the extent, you know, you've pared down a lot, you went through those specific provisions, you can pare them down more. I mean, remember your first draft didn't even have a short-term rental section in it. You know, we had taken that out completely. And I know there's lots of discussion regarding that downtown overlay. So whatever council decides to do, there's a lot of options on the table for you.
Okay, Mr. Green.
Madam Mayor, I'm gonna agree with my God, I forgot your name. I'm gonna agree with Ian Crafton here, Councilperson Crafton here, in that the last meeting that we had where we were talking about Title 16 was a bunch of questions which were getting answered. It wasn't amendments that were being offered, it was questions that we were looking for answers to. Some of those needed clarification from the attorneys, some just needed some input from planning. I think Planning Commission weighed in on some things as well. I don't think they've been fleshed out. I would be in favor of going ahead and having a special meeting on the 7th of July to flesh those out, put the amendments forward, and if possible, go ahead and pass it on the 7th of July.
My question would be, would that work for the attorney? The 7th, 10th, or the 11th? The 7th works?
Yes, that works.
That was a motion, Mr. Graham, I'll second it.
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded to have a special meeting on July 7th at 6 p.m. Does that work, Madam Clerk?
I believe so.
Okay.
Mayor, so one of the things that, I just are we trying to get a ordinance with some of those proposed amendments in that meeting packet for July 7th for that discussion?
I'll get as many as I can get in there. I mean, I think I can get most all of them. Unfortunately, every time I look at this, I find something I either having a question about or an amendment about. So I mean, again, it's a fine dance of how many times I've read this thing, so.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think the questions, you know, one of the things that will happen is there will be a lot of questions over the next year for implementation and a lot of amendments. If we do this right, you should be revisiting this title several times in the next year to 2 years, because nobody gets it right without putting it into practice, generally. So the more nimble the ordinance, the better.
Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? So we have postponed Title 16 again to a special meeting on July 7th at 6 p.m. And everybody will send, what?
He moved to.
Do I need to make an official motion with the word postpone in it? I think that was her thing there.
Get the gist of it, but yes.
Okay, so I move to postpone ordinance, whatever this is, 2514 or something.
Yep.
Wherever we're at, 2514, move to postpone that until 7th of July.
Seconded.
Okay. The motion has been made by Councilmember Graham, seconded by Councilmember Crafton. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, we are now at communications. Madam Clerk, please read the items by title.
Thank you. Item number 2510, introduction of conceptual plan for Nunley Park improvements. Planning Commission meeting minutes, April 8th and May 13th, 2025.
Okay, we are now at audience comments, which is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. You get 3 minutes, and please begin by stating your first and last name, and if you are a city resident.
Good evening, council members. My name is Eric Villasenor, and I am here today to discuss the benefits of building an accessory dwelling unit on my property. As a care coordinator with experience working with the elderly and disabled community, I've seen firsthand the importance of independent living and the challenges that come with finding affordable and supportive housing options. My issue today surrounds the current regulations for single-family residential zoning districts. I recently congratulated myself on paying my house off at the age of 33 after having a mortgage for 7 years. I'm now looking for my next investment. I have determined that being responsible is the best approach. Building an ADU would not only provide me with additional housing options for family members or caregivers, but also contribute to addressing the city's housing shortage. Moreover, it would allow me to create a supportive living environment for loved ones who require care and assistance. In my work, I've witnessed the positive impact that independent living can have on an individual's well-being and quality of life. ADUs can play a critical role in supporting this goal by providing affordable and flexible housing options. By allowing ADUs as separate dwellings, our city can promote more efficient use of existing infrastructure, support caregiving arrangements, and increase housing diversity. I believe that building an ADU would be a win-win for both me and the community. I urge you to consider the benefits of ADUs and support policies that promote their development. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And thank you. And is there anyone else? Seeing no one, I will close audience comments, bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next regular meeting, we'll see you July 7th at 6 p.m. Special meeting on Title 16. And then following that, we have our regular meeting on July 14th. And Madam Mayor, were you going to recap the July 4th events, or do you want me to do it, or are you going to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
11 o'clock, July 4th event, City of Wasilla, 11 a.m., parade downtown Wasilla. The theme is Front Porch Freedom, celebrating local traditions. From 1 to 3 o'clock, the Mayor's Picnic at Data Park Lawn, and 3 to 9 p.m., I believe, is the Music in the Park finale. Mr. Bell, is that correct? And that'll be near Wonderland Playground within Idita Park. So that's all I have.
Madam Mayor, sorry, just clarification there. I thought we're doing Music in the Park through July this year. Or is that next year? So next year is when we start going through July.
Yeah, all the discussions were funding the FY '26, so I couldn't put events on a schedule because they weren't funded.
Gotcha, okay. Technically, that's FY '27 at that point, but semantics at
Exactly,
this point.
and 4th of July is a horrible time with fiscal year because of how we have to do everything.
Madam Attorney.
No comment, Mayor.
Councilmember Rubio.
Great big huge audience tonight before they left, but it's always fun to see that, and good conversations tonight. And so I definitely thought it was a great meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to express some serious concern for the failed ordinance tonight around the appointment of our finance director and our chief of police, specifically our finance director. I really think it's something that needs to be considered because recently, when I was reviewing our P cards, I mean, I had our finance director lying to my face. I would ask her questions, she would tell me one thing, and then we would look at the policy, and it was something different. And so the fact that our council,
Holly.
no, I could say this if I want to. I mean, why?
Okay, well, and this really just goes to, you can say, you know, I would encourage council members to remember that there is an employment situation with the directors. And so when we talk about their conduct, we have a resignation from our finance director. And I think before we talk about conduct or behavior or performance, I really think that's in the purview of the mayor, and that we work hard in the municipality, the administration works hard to maintain confidentiality and consistency. So I would just say, I know, Councilmember Crafton, as you make your comments, to the extent you can present them in a way that complies with those approaches by administration and those limitations, that would be
Great. This was public information that I had requested. So, I mean, this, if any member of the public would have requested this, they would have asked these questions and seen these exact things. That we have policies in place in this city for how we conduct business. And we had people blatantly not following them. And so putting an ordinance in place that gives the council the ability to make sure that we have people that are going to follow those policies is very, very important. I saw what I believed blatant misuse of funds, recoding of funds strictly because they needed a way to make it work inside the budget. And then the council doesn't even want to talk about it. That ordinance was one of the most powerful provisions that the council could have used to make sure that stuff like that isn't happening inside this city. It's really odd that immediately following not only mine, but other members of this council reviewing the P card statements, that 3 days later after I asked some very serious questions, our finance director resigns? I find that to be a really odd situation here.
Councilmember Crafton, I would remind you that you have all taken an oath to do things that are in the best interest of the city.
And I believe this to be in the best interest of the city.
The city has an employment issue which is outside your authority as a council member.
How is reviewing our public records?
I would advise you to stop making allegations against the city and its compliance with laws that having reviewed the situation, I do not find warranted. As the city attorney, I would ask all council members to remember you have taken an oath to abstain.
I believe that this is in the best interest of the city.
Okay, so you are violating or going against the direct advice of the city attorney, and Councilmember Crafton, that is your right as an elected member.
I
But I want
believe
to make sure that that is clear for the record and the minutes and anything that comes out of this discussion. It's important for the city for that to be on the record. So I just want to make sure I said that, okay?
So I really do believe that. I believe that.
Okay, we need to take an at ease, and you need to step back and take a breath. You need to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. We're back on the record at 8:36. Okay,
Madam Mayor, may I continue?
you may continue.
I believe this council needs to have a conversation about use of the P cards and its policy, its travel statements or travel policy as well. I spent 6, 7, 8 hours, I don't know, hearing one thing, trying to be justified another, and asking questions, and constantly be told one thing, and then when I would read off our policies, they didn't have an answer. Oh, yes, that is what the policy said. Then why did you tell me something differently? That's what I don't understand. It's just a really odd situation, and I tried to have a conversation about this, and it didn't seem like anybody did. And to me, my oath of office is that I'm to protect this city. And when I saw what I saw, and the council chooses to not do anything about it, tells me I'm doing my job, and I don't believe everybody else is willing to do theirs. That's what I think, and I have the right to say that. And I think that is something, a conversation that needs to be had here, is that our policy when it comes to P-card and the use of our city funds needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you tonight. I will see everybody on the July 7th meeting. I hope everybody turns out for the festivities for 4th of July, and I hope you all have a good week.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. P-card is a method of payment. Everything that should be being paid with a P-card is in that budget. If it was approved by the budget, they use the P-card as a method of payment for that budget. Yes, there are procedures when using a P-card that, reading the memos that I read earlier, maybe weren't followed correctly. There should be a receipt for every P-card. Every time a P-card is used, there should be a receipt. There should be, that person should be listing out all their purchases with the account code. And then the finance director, or maybe they have a clerk that takes care of P-cards. They are to make sure it's all in order. If it's not in order, it should go right back to that employee. It's just that simple. If that wasn't being followed, that should have been followed. However, the misuse of a P-card, It's just saying that they're misusing their method of payment. That's all that is. It's their expenditures that should have already been approved. Like I said, it's just a method of payment. So if receipts weren't being attached, if you think account codes were being changed, that is something that should be addressed. Is it something the council address? No. It should be management addressing that procedures are not being followed. My previous employment, I had a P card that if I didn't have a receipt, I was asking for duplicate receipts where I got it, because I would get called on the carpet if I did not have a receipt to staple to my my P card statement. So I would say, no, we are not, why would the council go over the method of payments? We've already approved a budget. Those account codes should be being used for where they were appropriated. If they are not, then that needs to be looked at. That should be management. That should have been the finance director showing, is this all going correctly? When those memos came through, that finance director should have said, who's in charge of that? Oh my gosh, maybe people are not attaching receipts. They better be doing that. There are procedures that need to be followed. Is that council's job? I would say no. It is administration's job to make sure that they're going in the right accounts. Like I said, it's budgeted money. It's a method of payment. How can we oversee the method of payments? Anyway, thank you. That's my 2 cents.
Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first, thanks to our intrepid citizens here that sat through this. It's a lot of stuff going on, but this is definitely grassroots politics. This is where it happens. So we appreciate your being here, particularly the press. It's nice to actually see somebody from the press here in Wasilla, but we'll go from there. But I do appreciate all the discussion about a variety of things tonight, but I do want to leave a comment with Eric, our Public Works Director, regarding the conceptual plan for Nunley Park. The IM that's out there says we're going to have flyers available. I would suggest to you, sir, that we have a large blown up board with flyers attached. So people can take the flyers with them and go home and make their comments. But if we just have the flyers stuck to a bulletin board or something like that, they're going to be looked at the same as a lost dog flyer. People just aren't going to see it. And I do think we want to get, this is an opportunity for us to get some great input from people. And this is truly shows our interest in knowing what it is that they want their city to look like and what they want their parks to look like. So I would recommend that you do that, or I would request that you do that, and I look forward to doing that. Look forward to the 4th of July. I don't know what the mayor's going to dress up as this year, but she's always fun. So, so we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay. We have had a very,
Oh, Mr. Schmidt.
they don't put you on my list, Mark. Sorry. Mr. Schmidt.
Oh, thank you. Anyways, the 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays, and I'm certainly glad the city puts on this great event and the parade and all the stuff, the mayor's picnic and stuff like that. I think it's an amazing thing, and I hope everybody comes out to enjoy this occasion. It's just a great thing of our nation, this celebration, so thank you very much.
Thank you. We've had a very lively meeting tonight, to say the least. I'd like to point out that we have Ted Leonard. Most all of you know Ted. He is our interim finance director.
Thank you.
Sometimes as you all know, the wheels of government turn slow, but you have to do due diligence, and like I say, sometimes they turn slow. So anyway, You all know that my door is open, my phone is on. Elena, kudos to you because she never hesitates to reach out. And I see Stu about every Thursday.
Sit face to face.
I know we do. An hour.
Questions?
And we've not killed each other yet, so that's a good thing. But anyway, and to my directors, thank you all very much. Sometimes it's a hard-fought battle, but we do. Holly, thank you for everything that you do and trying to keep us keep the sideboards on us till we don't end up in a lawsuit, because that's very hard to, sometimes it's hard to, you want to do something, but you can't because you have to realize what your actions may bring about. So is it worth to the city to have a knee-jerk reaction and have the city sued? Or is it let the wheels turn slow? So anyway, everybody have a good evening, what's left. And 4th of July is next. Yes, I love 4th of July. So I expect to see all of you at least on the sidewalk of 4th of July and at the mayor's picnic, because there's always room to stuff hot dogs. Last year we stuffed 3,500 hot dog buns.
Sunshine Rotary?
Sunshine Rotary, absolutely.
Always the sunshine.
Thank you. With that, I adjourned at 8:46.